This grandma's insane story will haunt you forever. Overcoming trauma at 70. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the small town of Elmwood, as whispers of a legend soared through the streets. 6 decades ago, a young girl named Agnes had witnessed a horror that would shake the very foundations of her family. Now at 70, she stirred from an endless cycle of darkness, ready to unveil the chilling truth. A sense of dread gripped the air around her. It was thick enough to slice with a knife. The long-abandoned house at the end of Willow Lane, once filled with shouts of laughter, stood looming like a ghostly sentinel, silently guarding its secrets. In the days leading up to that summer's fateful eve, Agnes had felt a strange tug in her bones, an odd sensation that woke her from peaceful dreams into a world where shadows danced at the corners of her vision. Each creak of the floorboards echoed in her ears, like a siren's call, begging her to return to the place she once fled. The old trunk in her attic held remnants of the past. Dusty photographs, forgotten letters, and the scent of mildew mixing with a whiff of something far more sinister. With trembling hands, she pictured herself unearthing those memories, spiraling into the unknown, a terrifying but addictive thrill as the townsfolk gathered. Their hushed tones carried weight. They spoke of strange happenings around the house, the flickering lights and whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Mrs. Thompson, the neighbor, swore she saw a shadow in the upstairs window, pacing as if trapped, unable to escape. The fear enveloped the town like a thick fog, and each glance toward the crumbling estate sparked a wildfire of unease. Agnes felt the town's anxiety. They were on the edge, teetering between the ordinary and the unimaginable. Why, after all these years, were the ghosts of their past clawing their way back into the light? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Agnes stood in front of that crumbling facade, the door swung open with a thunderous creak. It felt like a beast exhaling after a long slumber. She peered inside, her heart racing wildly. The air was stale, tainted with dust and memories of a lost time. Suddenly, a cold gust rushed past her, sending chills down her spine. Was it the wind? Or something else? Her mind spun with anxious thoughts. The deeper she ventured, the more senses awakened, pulling at the fabric of her reality. What was waiting in the shadows of that house? What parts of her own soul lay buried, begging for release? The floorboards groaned beneath Agnes's weight as she stepped inside, each creak forming an ominous melody that wrapped around her spirit. Dust motes floated through the beams of fading light, dancing like spirits, teasing her with memories long hidden. The living room, once vibrant with warmth and laughter, felt like a forgotten tomb. A chill seeped into her bones as she moved, an unwelcome reminder of the past that lingered in every shadow. Agnes spotted a faded portrait hanging crooked on the wall. It was her family, smiling, frozen in a moment of happiness, blissfully unaware of the horror to come. She reached out, her fingers trembling, tracing the outline of their faces. For a heartbeat, all she felt was love. Then the familiar wave of dread washed over her like ice water. Agnes, the voice echoed faintly, a whisper curling around her name, beckoning her deeper into the house. Was it real? Panic ignited a dull throb in her skull. She took a steadying breath, trying to shake off the feeling that she was being watched. With determination, Agnes ventured onward, pushing the memories aside. The kitchen met her with an oppressive air, a thin layer of dust covering the countertops like a shroud. As she rummaged in drawers long left untouched, a sharp glint caught her eye, an old silver locket, twisted and tarnished. She opened it slowly, revealing a cracked photograph of a girl with bright, terrified eyes. A shudder shook her as she recognized her younger self, a younger self, who knew too well the paralyzing fear that had once gripped her heart. What happened here? It gnawed at her mind, an insatiable hunger for the truth. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved, but her hands trembled as she replaced the locket. The sound of shattering glass jolted her back to the present. Something had crashed in the other room. Her heart raced, adrenaline igniting every nerve in her body. Hello? She called out, unsure if she was ready for an answer. Silence swallowed her words like dark water. She took a hesitant step toward the noise, but dread wrapped around her, telling her to turn back. She steadied her breathing, telling herself it was only the house settling, nothing more than the wind playing tricks. Yet, as she crept closer, a strange compulsion pulled her forward. Shadows danced on the walls from the flickering light above, and the moment stretched like an infinite abyss. She couldn't turn back now. The truth needed to be confronted, and it lay just beyond the doorway ahead, its dark secrets pulsing, alive with energy. The door stood ajar, a promise of revelation lurking in the shadows behind it. As Agnes pushed it open, a horrifying sight met her eyes, a room filled with remnants of torment, memories of suffering woven into the very fabric of the air. But nestled among the wreckage, a familiar item caught her gaze, a diary. Its pages were dog-eared and stained, a forgotten account of secrets buried deep. Agnes felt a surge of courage. What had been hidden away for years could finally be revealed. But as her fingers brushed across the cover, a low growl reverberated from somewhere within the depths of the house, the unmistakable sound of something uncaged. What had she awakened? And was the truth worth the terror now creeping closer? The shadows shifted around her, clawing at the edges of her vision. It was time to discover what lay dormant for too long. Would Agnes be able to confront the horrors bound to her family? Or would the darkness consume her? Agnes's heart pounded in her chest as the growl echoed through the dim room, wrapping around her like a vice. She told herself it was her imagination, a trick of the mind fueled by anxiety. But deep down, she felt something primal whispering for her to flee. The shadows conspired, growing heavier and more menacing. With an effort, Agnes pulled her focus back to the diary. The cover was tattered and barely held together, but it had a strange allure, calling to her like a siren song. She couldn't let fear win. She needed to know what had happened here, to understand the darkness surrounding her family. As she gingerly opened the diary, the musty smell of old paper filled her nostrils, an aroma that draped itself over her like a warning. The first page trembled under her fingers, the ink faded but still legible. March 12, 1983. The entry began. Today everything changed. Agnes's breath hitched. The date was significant. It was the month her family had fractured. The memories came flooding back, laughter turning to shouting, joy twisting into sorrow. She scanned the lines, her eyes widening as she read about shadowy figures haunting the house, whispers in the night, and her mother's increasing paranoia. Each word unfolded like a dark flower, sprouting terror from the soil of her past. Just as she started piecing together the history, the growl came again, closer this time, vibrating through the walls. Agnes slammed the diary shut, thoughts racing. What did her mother know? What had she hidden? Suddenly a crash erupted behind her, and she spun around, eyes wide. The darkness morphed, swirling around her, and for a heartbeat, the house felt alive, breathing, hungry for something. Enough! She shouted, her voice cracking, but it was all she had to fight back the terror. Show yourself! The shadows shivered, and from the corner of the room, something stirred, faint but unmistakable. An outline like a twisted version of a human form emerged from the darkness, tendrils of shadow reaching outward. Fear tightened around her throat, its grip threatening to choke the words she wanted to scream. But she couldn't move. Her instincts screamed at her to run. Yet there was a strange pull, a desperate need to confront whatever this was. Who are you? She breathed, voice trembling. The figure hesitated, the shadows flickering as if considering her question. A piercing shriek filled the air, an eruption of terror screeching through the house, making the floor quake beneath her. Agnes stumbled back, heart racing. The diary. Maybe it held an answer. A way to banish this thing lurking in the dark. But before she could grab it again, the figure lunged. A mass of darkness surged toward her, engulfing her, and the world around her began to blur. She had little time left before whatever this was consumed her. Please help me. She managed to cry out. Then just as quickly as if the air had turned cold, the pressure disappeared. Silence roared in her ears. Agnes gasped, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to gather her wits. When the stillness enveloped her, the shadows pulled back ever so slightly, revealing a small children's toy, a ragdoll, its button eyes wide with an innocence that cut through the horror. Was this a clue? A sign that despite the darkness, a part of her family still remained? Bracing herself, she leaned forward to pick up the doll, ready to uncover the next layer of her family's agony. Was this child the key to understanding the beast she faced, or was it the precursor to more terror? Just then the diary snapped open again, pages fluttering wildly as if a wind swept through the room. Flashes of ink danced before her eyes. The pages stopped at a new entry, marked in frantic, desperate handwriting. They've come for us. What had she unearthed, and what forces were still at play within these walls? Agnes's heart raced as she stared at the diary, the new entry taunting her like a dark riddle. They've come for us, the words echoed in her mind, a chilling refrain that stoked the embers of fear. She gripped the rag doll tighter, feeling the rough fabric against her palms, seeking comfort from its inanimate presence. But there was no comfort to be found, only a nagging sense of dread deepened by the shadows creeping closer like a tightening noose. With trembling fingers, she turned back to the diary, flipping through the musty pages filled with her mother's anguished scrawls. Was this the last cry of a deeply troubled mind? Or was there something more, a warning? Each entry seeped into her skin, chilling her soul. The passages described not just terror but also despair, detailing how the family had been consumed by paranoia. A haunted existence shadowed by unseen figures with the power to unravel lives. Agnes's eyes darted to the doll again. For some reason it felt important, almost alive. "What did you want?" she whispered into the gloom, her breath shaky. The flickering shadows seemed to pulse in response, as if the house had a pulse of its own, feeding off her fear and uncertainty. Then came a noise, a low, echoing whisper, barely discernible. She strained to listen, adrenaline coursing through her like fire. The words twisted around her like vines. "Help us, play with us." The voices sounded innocent, childlike. But Agnes understood all too well the darkness that leered behind such sweetness. Were they spirits of children lost to the same shadows that plagued her family? Agnes stepped back, her heart pounding louder than the whispers. "No, I want to play," she shouted, asserting her will against the encroaching fear. The air felt electric, charged with ancient emotion, as the growl returned, a sinister promise that squeezed at the edges of her sanity. Suddenly, her gaze was drawn to the doorway. A flicker of movement, a silhouette darted past. She gasped, instinct screaming. Her cherished rationality fought against her desire to flee, but fear won, and she bolted towards the stairway, legs pumping as she raced against the darkness that clawed at her heels. Reaching the second-floor landing, she pressed her back against the wall, gasping for breath. Distant laughter floated through the house, disembodied and echoing, slipping in and out of her consciousness. The walls seemed to close in as she strained her ears, heart thundering like a drum in her chest. Was it real, or some sick trick of the darkness? A soft cry pulled her from her thoughts. She turned to find the source, only to be met by the same doll she had picked up downstairs. It had rolled to her feet, looking eerily out of place on the hardwood floor, as if it had a life of its own. A small handwritten note was tucked beneath it. "We need you, please." Agnes knelt, pulse racing as she reached for the note. The delicate script felt familiar, a chilling reminder of the past. In her mind, she replayed her mother's frantic warnings, the cryptic stories of being pursued by shadows, of hiding from something that wanted to reclaim them. Then, as she read the note aloud, darkness pooled in the corners, swirling with intent. "It's coming." The last word echoed through the corridor, the shadows curling tighter around her, daring her to move. Agnes felt a dark surge of anger. "I will not let you take me," she yelled into the abyss. The shadows recoiled briefly, the energy shifting like a storm. But the laughter intensified, almost mocking her declaration. Was it too late? Had the past come rushing back to swallow her whole? The question pressed at her, heavy and ominous. She had to understand, had to confront the truth of her family's agony before it consumed her. As she stood there, rooted in the murky depths of history and despair, a sense of resolve washed over her. But how far was she willing to go to face the secrets that lay buried? Would she uncover the hidden truths before they dragged her down into the abyss? The shadows shivered, and she could feel something stirring within them. A presence, ancient and restless, beckoned her closer. What awaited her on the threshold of terror? The answer lingered just beyond the reach of her consciousness, tantalizing and horrifying all at once. Agnes squeezed the note, its paper crumpling under her grip. The feeling of being watched intensified, a clammy weight pushing against her back. She tilted her head slightly, half expecting to see the silhouette again, creeping from the shadows. But it was gone, leaving only the stain of dread behind. A low tremor ran through the floorboards, vibrating up through her legs. Every inch of her screamed to run, but the pull of the darkness was both terrifying and oddly seductive. She knew deep down that confronting whatever lay hidden in her family's past was the only way to break the cycle. "I won't be afraid anymore," she murmured, though her voice wavered with determination. She took a step into the gloom, the diary clutched against her chest like a shield. She moved toward the only room she hadn't yet explored, or rather what had once been a room. A heavy door, closed tight, loomed ahead, the wood warped and aged. The laughter echoed again, louder now, a chorus of little voices melding into a frenzied chant that drummed against her ears. "Come play with us. Come play." Locking her jaw, she turned the knob. It creaked loudly in protest, twisting in her hand as she pushed the door open. The darkness inside the room felt almost tangible, thick like smoke, clawing at her with icy fingers. The small space was filled with abandoned toys, shattered dolls with empty eyes, their haunting expressions mirroring her own fear. As her gaze hardened, she spotted a single object standing out amongst the detritus, a small ornate music box, gleaming under an unseen light. Its delicate carvings were almost ethereal. The lid was partially ajar. Was it possible this was her family's legacy of torment? With bated breath she approached the box, her heart pounding in sync with the whispers. Tentatively she lifted the lid. The haunting melody that poured out was one she recognized from childhood, a lullaby sung by her mother, echoing memories she had tucked away. It brought forth images of her young self, visions twisted with the warmth of comfort that now felt terrifyingly far away. Suddenly the air grew cold. The whispers became sharper, frenetic. "You must listen. You must remember." A rush of icy air spiraled around her, inviting her deeper into the heart of the nightmare. Closing her eyes didn't block out the whirlwind of emotions swirling around her, her limbs trembling in response to the waves of urgency. "Shut it. Stop," she cried, slamming the lid shut. The music halted, leaving an oppressive silence that pressed heavily on her chest. But it didn't last. The silence shattered as the figure emerged again, clearer this time. A girl, no older than 7, with wide, pleading eyes that locked onto Agnes's own. "Please, help us." She reached out, a spectral hand stretching through the shadows, the pain evident in her phantom face. Agnes staggered back, knees buckling. "Who are you?" she breathed. But the girl only pointed behind her, a stricken look of fear etched on her features. Turning slowly, Agnes felt terror swallow her whole. A darkness surged from the corners, swirling into a substantial form, the outline of a figure she knew all too well. It was her mother. But something was off. The face was twisted, distorted with anguish and rage. "Agnes!" Her mother's voice echoed, a chilling combination of love and fury. "You must leave. This place is not for you." Frozen in place, Agnes struggled against the fear gripping her heart. "No, I need to understand." The shadows around her closed in, vibrant yet suffocating, drawing her closer to her mother's ghostly form. The girl's voice broke through the chaos, soft yet urgent. "You must break the curse. Find the truth or we will all be lost." Agnes shook as the atmosphere exploded with energy. Vision danced before her like fireflies, flickering memories merging with shadows. She could do this. She had to. For the girl, for her mother, for herself. Right as the darkness lunged at her, Agnes steeled her resolve. "I will remember," she shouted, heart racing as she prepared to face the truth. But was she truly ready? Shadows clawed at her, the room spiraled into chaos. What truths awaited her in the abyss, and could she escape what had her family imprisoned for generations? The question whipped around her mind. The answer lay in the echoing darkness, waiting to be unveiled. The air crackled as shadows rushed toward Agnes, a dark tide pulling her into its depths. A scream formed in her throat, but it was swallowed by the thick silence. The girl's eyes reflected desperation, pleading for her to act. "Find the truth," she whispered again, her spectral hand gesturing toward the dark figure looming closer. Agnes felt frozen, caught between wanting to escape and needing to confront her past. "Who are you?" she shouted at the shadow, desperately searching for answers. Your mother. The voice rang deep, reverberating off the decaying walls. It was stronger, echoing fear and shattered love. Leave this place. Tears pricked the corners of Agnes's eyes, boiling over with confusion and anger. Why? Because of what you've done? The figure's face twisted, dark shadows merging and shifting like a storm cloud. You don't know. You don't remember. Agnes took a breath, feeling the icy grip of anger turn into resolve. Then make me remember, she demanded, stepping forward. The room pulsed, the very air vibrating around her. The music box seemed to hum beneath the floorboards, resonating with her heartbeat. The girl faded, her expression a fragile mix of hope and fear. You have to choose before she could think. Agnes lunged toward her mother, her hands slicing through the chaos. I want to run. I'll find out why. In that instant the shadows recoiled as if they were alive. The figure wavered, flickering like a dying flame. You must open your heart to the truth, Agnes. Only then can you see me. She staggered, each word wrapping around her soul like a vice. What truth? What did you do? As the shadows faded momentarily, Agnes felt a pulse of warmth, a flicker of light emerging in the corner of the room, illuminating yellowed photographs scattered across the floor. They looked familiar. Her childhood faces, smiling in memories she had almost lost in darkness. Look, remember, the girl urged, gripping her hand. Agnes knelt, picking up one photo after another. There she was as a child, laughing. Her mother too. A genuine smile spread across her face. Each snap felt like a shard piercing through the veil. Memories clamored back, rushing her with frantic urgency. Then she saw it, an image faded and torn, her mother holding a black vintage doll, her eyes hollow, almost as empty as the dolls staring back at her in the room. A doll she remembered as a source of fear, a source of nightmares whispered about but never explained. Why the doll? Agnes murmured, her heart hammering. But before she could inquire further, the shadows swept back, engulfing the photos in darkness. The air thickened, the scent of decay overwhelming her senses, and whispers filled the room, rising like a wave. Agnes, you must understand and break the cycle. The doll is the key. What cycle? She shouted, voice trembling as panic threatened to claw her insides. You know the answer. You always did. Agnes inhaled sharply, her hands shaking, eyes darting. The walls closed in, constricting her senses. Each breath felt heavier, engulfed by a darkness weaving around her. No, she screamed, fighting against the shadows encroaching on her. I refused to be silent anymore. The figure of her mother lunged forward as if it had regained strength. Agnes, listen. We need to. But Agnes saw it then, the doll, sitting silently amidst the shadows, a glimmer of desperation in its glass eyes. I will not be afraid, she shouted, bounding toward it, reaching for the memory buried deep within her. That was it. The truth was waiting. It was all about to unleash. The moment she touched the doll, reality lurched, pulling her deeper into a void where time and space distorted. Faces flickered, shadows danced, and the echoes of her family's past collided within her. In the chaos, a thought pierced through. What had her mother done to be trapped within this nightmare? And why hadn't she been told? Agnes felt the ground beneath her shift, wild and chaotic. As she held onto the doll, a scream erupted from a memory unknown, gripping her with a fierce urgency. Would she unlock the truth or become ensnared in the same darkness that ensnared her mother? The room trembled as the shadows caved in, demanding answers. And in that moment of desperation, Agnes realized she was not just fighting for herself, she was fighting for everything that had been lost. The final piece was about to be revealed, but at what cost? The moment Agnes's fingers grazed the doll's smooth, cold surface, a jolt surged through her, electrifying her very being. The world around her twisted as if caught in a maelstrom. The space dilated and contracted violently, shadows swirling into monstrous shapes. She felt weightlessness, the sensation of being yanked into darkness. Open your mind, Agnes. The voice, both familiar and alien, echoed through her head, sounding like her mother but layered with something else, something darker. Visions burst forward like a slideshow out of control. A room filled with light, her mother smiling. Then an argument, voices raised, anger boiling over. A shadowy figure loomed in the background, vague but sinister, as if it were always there, waiting. I have to remember. Agnes gasped, fighting against the pull of incomprehensible terror. Locked in a battle of wills. She tightened her grip on the doll, the only anchor to the tangible world as memories crashed over her in waves. She remembered the cold nights spent clutching that very doll, the whispers that floated through the halls, the weight of secrets pressing down on her heart. Each recollection was laced with bitterness, and as more surged forth, the specter of her mother seemed to shimmer closer, infused with urgency. The truth can heal. The voice intensified, rising above the din of chaos, filled with raw desperation. You must see. Then came the image. Her mother's face twisted with regret, cradling the doll, tears streaming down her cheeks. It's not what you think, Agnes, her mother had said, just before darkness took her. Agnes felt her chest constrict, the weight of revelation pressing against her lungs. I need to know, she cried out, voice breaking. The shadows pressed deeper, surrounding her. The doll carries the burden, she heard, but this time it was her own voice, echoing in the void. The burden of our family's curse. What was the curse? Questions looped, but clarity hovered just out of reach. The doll's glass eyes glimmered like twin moons in an endless void. In that moment, Agnes felt a flicker, a memory hidden beneath the layers of fear and pain. A diary. Her mother had kept secrets locked away, stories of anguish and loss intertwined with faded tales of love. With newfound determination, Agnes reached deep within herself and yelled into the abyss, "Show me." The shadows rippled violently, reforming into a spiral of glowing images. She saw her mother's hands trembling as she wrote, pages crammed with secrets only veiled in sorrow. The words glimmered with a promise, a pursuit of redemption. Then came the vision of a child's scream. A faint glimmer of sunlight, harsh and bright through a window. A crashing sound. A warning. And then silence. Agnes felt bile rise in her throat. What happened? She screamed, voice barely carrying through the swelling shadows. Let me go. A shrill cry broke free, and something within her snapped. The chaos grew still, a moment suspended in time. A lifeline offered from within the void. The words of her mother, the very essence of their family's history. Agnes clenched her teeth, feeling the weight of it all. The truth would be more painful than nails on a chalkboard. But perhaps it would also be the key to freeing her mother, the doll, and herself from a past that clawed at her mind like a relentless demon. In that solitary moment, she asked, fueled by desperation and an unyielding need for answers, what did the doll do? What did you keep from me? The ground surged again beneath her feet, and just before she was pulled into the darkness once more, a single word rang in the silence, remember. Then all went black. Agnes gasped, awakening on the dusty floor. The doll still clutched against her chest. Heart pounding, she looked around, panting heavily. Had she broken through? Or had she only just begun to dig into the terrifying depths of her family's past? And the whispers from the shadows returned, taunting. The cycle can never truly end unless you face it. Next to her, the music box she had sensed earlier flickered to life. A haunting melody filled the air, chilling her bones as she eyed it uneasily. What more lay hidden in the haunting music? And would she have the strength to uncover the truth? Or was she destined to lose herself within the same dark threads that bound her family for generations? Agnes's breath came in shallow gasps as she stared at the music box, its delicate mechanism grinding away, filling the thick air with an eerie tune. What did it mean? Why now? Every note struck a nerve, resonating with the tension coiling in her chest. She pushed herself up, the doll dropping from her embrace, landing softly but painfully on the hard ground. The melody twisted in her ears, a siren-esque call that begged her to engage with it. It drugged her thoughts again, slipping past her defenses and prying open her memories like a rusty key turning in a lock. You have to listen, Agnes. Again that voice echoed, a warped mix of her mother and something otherworldly. The music holds the truth. Cautiously she reached for the music box. It felt warm against her cold fingers, vibrating with energy, a portal to the past. The melody played on, weaving images before her eyes, suffocating her senses. Suddenly, the shadows in the corners of the room shifted, forming familiar shapes. A woman stood tall, her features scattered along the notes, aching with sorrow. Her mother? Agnes blinked hard, trying to pull the image into focus. Her long hair fell in thick waves around her shoulders, a portrait of grace and despair intertwined. Stop denying it, Agnes. It's all connected. Her mother's voice, clear and crisp, broke through the haze. You have to break the cycle. The images whirled, twisting into a vortex that cast reflections of dark nights spent in fear, screams drowned out by the shadows lurking in the house. She recalled herself as a little girl, peering from behind the living room curtains, watching strangers pass by. They looked so happy, so free. Not like her. Why didn't you save me? Agnes shouted, the words tearing from her throat. The music continued, relentless, mocking the quiet resolution she tried to build up. Again, the room brightened and dimmed. A flicker revealed the diary she envisioned earlier, lying on a table cluttered with memories. She darted towards it, heart hammering, desperate for salvation in the pages of her mother's hidden truths. As she opened it, a gust of wind swept through the room, ripping the pages open wide as if critiquing every secret written on them. The words danced ahead of her eyes, memories spilling forth. Agnes, you must understand. There's a reason for the doll. You have to face what happened to save us. Another scream resonated, echoing, reverberating, clawing at her sanity and pulling her to the edge of despair. Agnes slammed the book shut and turned, breathing heavily. Suddenly the atmosphere shifted, charged with something far more sinister. In that charged moment the shadows thinned, revealing the figure hovering behind her, the same dark silhouette from her visions. Its outline was sharp, its presence stifling. What are you? She whispered, voice trembling. The doll glowed faintly, sensing the menace as if it were alive. It's all your fault, the figure hissed, and Agnes felt her blood run cold. It wasn't just the doll, it was her past. Her trauma manifesting into something grotesque, a reflection of everything she wanted to forget. Let the truth out, get away from me. Agnes shouted, hands raised, pushing back the horrors, half believing she could contain them with sheer will alone. But then she faltered, breath hitching. What if facing it meant losing everything she had left? And just like that, the music box stopped. Silence hung in the air, suffocating, thick with tension. In that moment, Agnes understood the gravity of her decision. Either she would confront the darkness, horrific and true, or remain forever shackled by a past that loomed like a specter. Her heart beat wildly in her chest as she steeled herself. I will not let you haunt me any longer, she declared, challenging the shadows that threatened to consume her. The dark figure recoiled, its form twisting. You cannot escape your fate. What was her fate? As she stood resolute, the shadows swirled around her, the air thickening with foreboding as she began to realize the depth of her own unanswered questions. Could she truly break the cycle? Or would everything she uncovered drag her deeper into the abyss? The answer lingered ahead, tantalizing yet terrifying, as the shadows began to close in again. What awaited her beyond the music's silence? What awaited within those cursed pages? The next revelation hovered just out of reach. Agnes stumbled backward, the darkness curling around her limbs like a spindly vine, holding her in place. Every shadow whispered twisted secrets, cruel laughter mingling with the remnants of the music box's haunting melody. The air felt electric, charged with the weight of the past and the unknown future, prickling against her skin. The dark figure loomed closer, distorting with every blink, and something within her broke. No, I refuse to be afraid, Agnes shouted. The words, raw and fierce, pierced through the encroaching darkness like shards of glass. And then unexpectedly the shadows quaked. Face the truth, the figure screeched, its voice like nails on a chalkboard, echoing through the stillness. You can't hide from her. Agnes's heart raced, pounding like a drum in a war march. The threats blended with her memories, her fears intertwining with the icy fingers of the dark figure. In that moment clarity struck. It wasn't just about confrontation. It was about understanding. Understanding why the shadows existed in the first place. Why are you doing this? She pleaded. What do you want from me? The figure hesitated. The shadows rippled, almost wavering in uncertainty. For just a heartbeat, it seemed less like a menacing specter and more like a veil, one that could be lifted with courage. You must remember the doll. It hissed, voice dipping low. It was never just a toy. It holds the memories of your past, your mother's pain, your own. It is a key, Agnes. A key to your freedom. Her breath caught. The doll? Agnes felt the old familiar weight of the idea pulling at her. Was it truly the vessel for all her mother's unspoken atrocities? For all the neglect and fear? Yes, the figure shrieked. sensing Agnes's moment of clarity, feeding on her wavering resolve. You know what you must do. The music box had stopped playing, but the echoes of the melody spiraled in her mind, urging her to seek out truth. Encouragement or torment? She couldn't tell anymore. With trembling hands, she grabbed the doll from the floor, holding it tightly against her chest. Its porcelain face, once innocent and charming, now held a cautionary allure, the promise of revelations buried deep within. What do you want me to see? She whispered, half to herself and half to the darkness that still hovered nearby. Suddenly, the room shuddered, the air thickening as colors bled into the outskirts of her vision. The doll began to warm against her skin, pulsating softly, as if alive and eager to reveal the secrets it contained. Delve deeper, the figure urged, its nefarious grin twisting in the dim light. Uncover what she left behind before the truth devours you whole. Agnes felt chains of dread tighten around her gut. What if confronting the truth demanded more than she was ready to bear? And what if the memories that lurked behind that porcelain doll were more horrific than anything she had already encountered? Wasn't it better to fear the unknown than to relive the suffering? But beneath those fears was something else, an unyielding desire to break free from the suffocating cycle that bound generations of women in her family. She needed to know. She needed to fight for a freedom she had never truly known. No, Agnes breathed, determination solidifying in her core. I will find out. I will break this cycle. In that moment the shadows roared, swirling violently around her. The figure distorted and split apart, only to reform, more powerful and wrathful than before. Foolish girl. The truth will break you. The chaos intensified, the air crackling like a storm on the brink of eruption. Agnes steeled herself, feeling the warmth of the doll radiate through her. As she opened her mouth to speak, ready to confront whatever nightmare awaited her, the world around her ruptured, visions colliding into one another, memories streaming at dizzying speed. And then, with a jarring lurch, silence fell like a hammer. Agnes stared into the abyss, heart in her throat, and realized. What truth lay hidden in the dark? What would she have to sacrifice to unearth it? In front of her the darkness quivered, ready to reveal what lurked under the surface. Would she emerge unscathed? Or would her quest for truth lead her into an even deeper nightmare? The answer surged closer as the shadows beckoned. The shadows swirled around Agnes, their eerie tendrils twisting toward her like frantic fingers calling her into their grasp. The room vibrated with an unnatural energy, as if the very walls were anticipating a cataclysmic event. Each heartbeat echoed thunderously in her ears, drowning out all rational thought. Agnes felt that she stood on the edge of a precipice, staring into the dark void of her family's history that had long haunted her. Taking a deep breath, she gripped the doll tightly, its familiar weight grounding her even as dread coiled within her gut. I am not afraid, she declared, her voice coming out stronger than the fear clawing at her heart. I will remember. As if in response, the shadows pulsed, intensifying with a malevolent energy. The dark figure writhed before her, caught somewhere between rage and desperation. You think you can handle the truth? It hissed, and for the first time, Agnes sensed a flicker of uncertainty within the darkness. Everything you uncover will shatter you. I would rather be shattered by the truth than live in this lie. Agnes retorted, her resolve hardening like steel. She closed her eyes and concentrated, feeling the pull of fragmented memories jostling against her consciousness. Show me what you don't want me to see. Instantly visions washed over her. Her mother, younger, happier, sitting in a sunlit room, cradling the very doll in her arms. Then the scenery shifted. Darkness seeped in as shadows crept around them like spiraling vines, suffocating and enveloping. No! Agnes shouted as she watched her mother's face twist in fear and despair, eyes darting around the room, searching for something. The atmosphere turned tense, a storm brewing in the confines of the home. The doll's eyes shimmered, and suddenly it was as if a door opened in her mind. She felt the memories flooding in, every scream swallowed by midnight silence, every tear hidden behind forced smiles. She caught snippets of whispered secrets in her childhood, her mother's hushed tones warning her of dangers just beyond detection. Remember, the shadow screeched. You must remember the tragic moment the curse began before you were born. Agnes felt her heart race. The grasp of fear tightened around her throat, but she pressed on, each memory flickering like a dying flame. Another vision appeared, a heated argument between her parents, shadows leaping in the corner. The sound of shattering glass reverberated through her mind. The doll, the night of the storm, she whispered, piecing it all together. Her mother, in that moment of chaos, caught between despair and rage. Don't you see? The shadow pleaded, formless but desperate now. You're trapped in the cycle because she was trapped. One moment, one curse, and it wove through generations. The doll holds the key. At last Agnes understood. The doll was more than a toy. It was an emblem of her family's darkest secrets and pains. A prison made of memory and sorrow. With newfound clarity, she raised the doll high above her head. I will break this cycle, she yelled, summoning every ounce of strength. I'll face the truth and free us. The room shook, shadows convulsing violently as though in rebellion against her declaration. The figure lunged for her, its maw stretching wide, threat exploding from the darkness in a wave of cold. But Agnes didn't flinch. The warmth of the doll radiated through her, pulsing with her heartbeat as she felt an overwhelming wave of courage rush to the forefront of her spirit. I choose to remember, she declared, and with those words the doll flickered with light. It illuminated the room, pushing the shadows back, revealing the true horror etched on her mother's face, a reflection of anguish, woven with love. And that illumination, Agnes beheld the entirety of her family's suffering laid bare, a tapestry of grief and hope woven through the cracks. The darkness receded, leaving in its wake the remnants of lost memories and threads of light. Her mother's voice broke through the din, crystalline and clear, urging her toward understanding. Agnes, you have the strength to break our chains. With a determined heart, Agnes grasped the doll tightly, knowing now that the only way to free herself and her family was to face the past. The burden of secrets lifted as she shouted, let the truth unfold. I am ready. And with that proclamation, the shadows tore apart, unraveling the history that bound her family for generations. The air shimmered, the world brightened, and darkness was banished. Agnes's spirit soared, and the scream of anguish transformed into a song of hope as the last remnants of shadows faded. Agnes felt a wave of warmth envelop her, a soothing balm to her weary soul. She realized she had released her mother and herself from the chains of silence. The sun peeked through the windows of the long-abandoned house, casting golden rays across the floor, igniting a spark of life where darkness had once reigned. Agnes stood, feeling lighter, finally free from the weight of the past. The journey ahead was uncertain, but she was no longer afraid. She had conquered her demons. She stepped out of the house into the light of a new day, the doll still clutched in her hand, a reminder of what she had overcome and a beacon for the future. For my family, she whispered softly, smiling, knowing that their legacy would no longer be of fear but of hope and healing. Her heart full, she took a deep breath and walked away from the haunted house and all its ghosts, ready to embrace the life that lay ahead. Now it's your turn to keep the spirit alive. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss out on the next mystery to unravel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the content you love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear every thought. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand how vital your support is. Let us keep this journey going together.